Thinking about mothering beyond the womb, wondering if nurturing the mind, the heart, and the spirit could actually build a better nation? Pause. In this episode of Mental Health Week month, we're sitting down with a visionary leader, scholar, artist, Dr. Desirée Cox, to ask the question, can mothering mental health beyond biology catapult national development? From regenerative health and longevity to national healing and legacy, we unpack how care, not just concrete, could be the real foundation for $100 billion Bahamas. Think about it with intentional thought and stay tuned.
Something to think about with Dale Happy Knowles. What we think, we become. What we radiate, we attract. What we imagine, we surely can achieve. Let's change the narrative, 242.
Welcome. We're here this evening with you bright and early in your classes. And we used to say in school, are we all in our places with bright, shiny faces?
I love it.
Yes. Madam Dr. Desirée Cox, how are you today?
I'm very well. It's so good to be spending time with my old schoolmate. So I was just, reminiscing that, wow, yes, he's my buddy. We were in high school together. We were in QC together. So it's a pleasure to connect with you. And I love your show. I love what you're trying to do. And as we were saying backstage, much respect to you for doing it for 4 years, because it's a labor of love. But there's nothing more beautiful and inspiring and to your topic, heart opening than good conversation. Good conversation can be, oh my gosh, such a gift. I think back, just to digress a little, the mothering, I think back to friends that I've had where, you have those friends where even if you've been away from them for years, you reconnect and it feels like yesterday. And so much of that is about the gift of good conversation, the gift of listening, the gift of feeling where the other person's at. And so much of that is exactly what you're talking about with care. Care is not just about words and saying positive things and giving cookies and gifts. It really, so much of it lives in the space of listening and being able to listen with no judgment and from love. And that can be the hardest thing, especially if the person is saying something that you just do not agree with and you do not buy and you do not believe. To find the place to listen from love is, it makes the moment transformational. And it's, if you're not just giving it lip service and you're living it, you will every day be hitting up against the challenges of it. So I think nuggets in terms of your mothering mental health. One of the moments, I would say, one of the insights of care, and one of the things that I've learned and try and practice in my own life and recognize how challenging it is the gift of empathetic listening, listening to the person from the greatness of who they are, not necessarily who they're showing up to be. I have one of my rabbi mentors will, often says, remember that to treat your fellow, especially your friends or people around you, with respect, is to listen to them as if they were already a great soul, that they are a great soul. Imagine how you would be if you were listening to someone that they were a great soul. They're evolving. They may be showing up in a particular way, but they're a great soul. So how we listen to people, I think, is a really powerful way of caring and opening the door for them to become who they might be.
Yeah. And we had a teacher, or educator, I should say, because he does not qualify to be called a teacher. That's beneath him. It was the Honorable Carlton E. Francis, and he used to say, Mr. Knowles, God gave you 2 ears to listen and twice as much as he gave you the mouth to talk. So stop talking and listen.
Yeah, I know. And it's really powerful what you just said on the talking side. When we were preparing for the show, and you said, sometimes as I'm prepared for the show, I'm talking to myself. And the reality is, we're all talking to ourselves all the time. And but some of the things we're saying to ourselves are not empowering. And so
Right.
the second part, I would say, insight wise, I was thinking, because the topic is big and broad and bold, and I was like, wow, can I rise to the challenge of this
Yeah,
topic?
man. We can narrow it down somewhat as we go.
We're narrowing it. So the first insight I would say is empathetic listening, the power of that, the way everyone can do it, the way it's not easy to do, and the way when you're listening empathetically, you're a gift to the person and yourself. But the other part of it that I'm always working with is the self-talk. We're always talking to ourselves. We're not always saying the most important things to ourselves, the most powerful things to ourselves. But, speaking to yourself is a neurological command. It's there's neurobiology, neurochemistry around that process of self-talk.
Okay.
And you want to talk to yourself. And there are 2 pieces of that. I would say the brain doesn't care what you hope for. The brain cares about who you think you are. It's not about what you want. And if you want to kind of re-engineer who you are, so much of that is calling into the things that you can do and speaking with precision to yourself. Not necessarily positive thinking, just saying, you can do this. You've done this before. Do this again. But the power of that kind of mental training is you're evolving so that you can speak truth to yourself before someone tries to seduce or convince you of a limitation, a more limited view of yourself. And that's it's not my expression, but it's the term is neuro sovereignty or neurological sovereignty, like the sovereignty of your mind and thoughts, because there's so much power in your biology, in all the stuff that you're saying to yourself. So sometimes if I have, and you talked about the painting and the art, one of the great gifts of art for me, I think about when I first started to paint, self-taught artist. And so I gave myself certain rules. And one of my rules were there are no mistakes. There's nothing that you can do. Nothing that you can do here is a mistake. So when you would make some mark on the canvas and it was not what you'd intended, to remind yourself that there weren't no mistakes, that really helped my self-talk and training outside of the studio, because I could take so much of that process of discovery, when you take the freedom, you either see it as the freedom to, well, that didn't go so great, let's do it another day. A friend of mine says, you want to speak to yourself like one of those sports commentators. Well, we can see that he bounced. That was a mistake, but he'll go back to the court.
Right.
And he says she talks to herself like a sports commentator. So that is the freedom to make the mistake, and you'll regroup. But the other side that worked for me was the sense that there are no mistakes. What happened. It wasn't what I intended. It wasn't the impact that I intended, but consider that actually it was, and let's go with that. Let's keep going with that and see what I can learn from it. So one of the gifts, I think, a third insight around mothering, and that would be starting with yourself. And growth is the cultivating the art and science of discovery. Like, you're going through life every moment, every day, discovering. You're discovering stuff about yourself. It's not the same thing as yesterday. You're not the same as you were a moment ago, let alone yesterday or last year. And if you're kind of getting the muscle, the mind, body, spirit muscles to live from a place of discovery, that really starts to keep awareness, keep curious. And that takes time, that takes all kinds of things, but doing it by creating a practice that is joyful, like a practice that is fun, and keeping it as a practice and watching yourself evolve is a way of like taking it from a nice idea and growing it into your body. It's like it into your body so it becomes a part of your muscle. Before you know it, you can call on the examples from that practice. So there's one for me, one of the great gifts of that.
Awesome. So, folks, before this young lady here, and she's young because I can tell you right now, right? She's
we're both young.
She's a regenerative healer, a visionary thinker, a cultural architect, a longevity leader, a soulful scientist, an artist, a musician, poet, all kind of things. But let me tell you the real Desirée Cox that I know about, right?
Because you know me from back then.
This gal born to be a genius, but from time she was a diva, So when you see that picture on the screen that I had up earlier, that ain't no fake. Right? That's true. You could see that swag and all that kind of stuff, and so you better come strong when you come to the debates and you come to the spelling bee and it's academic and the Bahamian, I call it Bahamian broadcast on the block, Broadway on the block, But let me tell you, y'all ain't got it, particularly them suckers out there, right? Y'all ain't got it, right? Because we comets.
Yeah, we love to make fun of. Oh my God, we love to tease the big red machine. We're sorry. Right. We're QC. We actually.
Y'all ain't have the first Bahamian Rhodes Scholar on your school register. Bam. That's the lady on the screen in front of me. Yeah. Yeah. Besides being the first, I think, woman Rhodes Scholar in the Caribbean, right? Something like that too. Yeah. I remember something about that one before. Cool. Yeah. All right.
But you say that. I was really shy, and I was not.
You was never shy.
I was, but really I was. But you wouldn't know me by then. I really was not that keen on all of the dressing up and whatever. But one of the things that you learn as a singer, because you didn't know me as a childhood singer, is the whole act. It was such important training as a kid, and my mom really spent the time, but you can't wear that, you've got to do this. So a lot of the training of singing, especially if you're on a kid or jazz singer or whatever, is that you have to command the space. And so you learn very quickly that people have made a decision about you before you've opened your mouth. Like before the minute you turned up, they've already decided. So try to actually bring them on side. Like try to be in a space where they're on side. And then you realize, and we're doing this all the time when we communicate. We're doing this all the time when we are at board meetings or when we're creating, is we're sending all these messages. And so I think one of the things I would say about being a leader, an innovator, and this comes into what you're describing too with mental health, is learning the art and science of creating your own story. Because as you decide, I'm going to cut this road, this is where I'm going. And many times you don't consciously have all the pieces. You're just like inching towards a particular area. And then when you look back, this is the Steve Jobs quote, you look back, you start to see a pattern. Now you've seen the pattern, and the expression is that what is for you is seen most fully by you, and you won't be seen fully by everyone else, but seen fully by you you now have to find the way to tell the story of where you're going and who you are. Sometimes people get cross with other people don't understand me. I'm trying to do this, but they don't understand me. They don't really get me. But it's like, but it's not their responsibility to get you. It's your responsibility to communicate who you are to them. And so if you're in this crosstalk, which is you're trying to express a particular thing and your pushback is indicating, I'm not feeling you. This was always the gift of the Bahamas because Bahamians are so straight up with that. You'll be like out of the box and they'll be looking at you with that face that looks like a gathering cloud. Like, what? And so I found that a gift because you'd be watching, you'd be gauging, like, is what I'm saying landing? Do I need to rephrase it? Do I need to? And you're trying and you're doing this every time you're singing, by the way. You're navigating that moment where you start to see the light. You see the light turn on. You see something flicker.
Yeah.
And you know, okay, what did I say that kind of
triggered
that triggered that? So I think
the energy.
That's the energy.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you're talking about with mental health, living, finding, evolving, having the confidence to move towards your purpose. It's also about everyone wants to be seen in the world, heard in the world. It's also about communicating with the people, your world around you, to have your world respond to what you're trying to say, so that it's in a conversation. Otherwise, a good mentor of mine said to me, a leader who has no one following is just taking a nice walk in the park. So you're, especially if you've got a vision of something, you see it, you totally see it. Maybe others aren't quite seeing it. The narrative, the path is to now create the path so that others can get what you're trying to share.
Yeah. And I always say that, the leader is the one who the people are willing to follow. You're not what you're doing. If you're leading somebody else, but you're not leading them, right? So let's see if we could button down some of these questions before we run out of time, because time is fly, right? But I always say that that we spend so much time in the Bahamas focusing on the fact that we talk about leadership just now. We're talking about leadership as a shortcoming in our nation, credit to the fact that we have absentee fathers, and this is why we have so much crime and this and that and all that kind of stuff. But I believe that we have a larger challenge, and that is the absentee mothering, right? By default mothers are present, etc. But the question is, are they mothering, particularly today? I mean, back in the day when you had villages and stuff, somebody was doing the mothering. So I always say, consider of all our societal woes, are we aligned with the lack of love, respect, nurturing, and conflict management, etc.? And those things, to me, comes from mothering, not from men leading and so forth. I'm not taking away from the responsibility that the man has to do his part, but these critical parts. So what do you say to that? Because from your works, I believe that it's important to say, why did I lose you? I'm always losing when I listen.
I'm here.
Yeah. So I think it's important that what I gather from my little bit of studies of your works and over the years, knowing what you're about and all that kind of stuff, you say that from the womb is wisdom to national healing, from longevity to legacy. We're exploring how care, not just concrete, would be real foundation for thriving in the Bahamas.
Yeah, I would say on the mothering side, I'm really blessed. People will say, what would you say were strengths in your evolution and from a long line of matriarchs? And I'll give you some. They encapsulated different mothering styles. Okay. So, and they probably encapsulated that because they were, by the time as I encountered them, I would have been raised by my great-grandparents, my grandparents, less my grandparents, but more my great-grandparents, my parents. And my great-grandmother, you know, when I was a kid, when I was around 7 or so, my great-grandmother called me inside and said, "Child, what do you want to be when you grow up?"
Mm.
It's like, so I give you that as an example of her style of mothering was, you know, Pentecostal founder, the the wife of a deacon,
Mm.
very organized, a seamstress, very pragmatic, but very focused on women having their having, you know, having something that they were to do in the world, and a sense that there was no age that was too young for you to be considering that.
Right.
So that was profound. And so I think I said I wanted to be a doctor. When I can't remember when I said that, but I was young, and her response to me, because it was also a way of engaging that was so straight. Well, great God from heaven, women can't be doctors. And so she said that to me. Okay, that
Mhm.
was, and then years later, every year, every other year, she would ask me, "Child, decided what you want to be," and I would
Mhm.
be saying the same thing. And then when I was maybe 15 or so, I overheard her saying to my mother, "Well, I've quizzed the child on a number of occasions, and it's clear to me that she means to do what she says she wants to do. And so it's your job to make it happen." And so there was,
Mm. Wow.
their generation was, they really, especially my great grandmother, they saw that it was possible to go against the status quo,
Mhm.
go against the grain. But in their own way, they also were clear that there were there were personality traits that were needed for that, and persistence was absolutely one of them. So they respected, if they told you, if you said yay and they said nay, they respected if you seemed to have the tenacity to be clear
Mhm.
that you're coming back to that. They would then come behind you and support you. So that was that style. My mother's style was related, but she had her own style. And her big thing again was coming back to mothering and women, that women should, she wanted her girls to be able to stand their own 2 feet, to have, be able to chart their course. She saw
Mm.
education as the way, as an
Mhm.
important part of that. So she pushed that. But she also recognized the importance of social skills, networking, because it wasn't just about what you knew. She would say it was not just about what you know, it's about who knows you. so
Mhm. Mhm.
so there is the art and science and style of uh not just being clear on what you want to do in the world, but being clear on how, being curating and getting your power to curate how you want to be received in the world. So
Mm.
I would say the gift of that strong matriarch, um, uh, uh, line, was these different styles of mothering, strong mothering.
Mhm.
Um, they didn't, if they thought you were talking, no matter how clever you sounded, if they didn't understand it, they just told you, "I don't know what you're talking about." And
Mhm.
so you had to go back to the drawing board. So very straight talking, um, very much about the importance of persistence, very much about the importance of moving and speaking from the heart, and having the courage to speak from the heart, and getting that it's not always easy to speak from the heart. So, you know, it is a tough job to be a mother in today's world. I mean, it really is a tough job. It was
Mhm.
very different to their time. But I would say that there is that wisdom that you described, that wisdom is really critical. And you don't have to have physically given birth to a child
Right.
to be contributing that to someone's
Right. Right.
life. I think if you see someone and you see them reaching for something, and maybe they're doing it in a way that you think, man, that so is not going to work, okay?
Mhm.
Or I would do it a bit differently, to expose them to other ways, and invite them to maybe follow you, maybe join you, or as we do with the Healing Summit, create the context where they as a group can be exposed to something else so that
Mm-hmm.
you have the peer-to-peer support conversation.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that creating the space for nurturing new ideas and mentoring is very much a mothering role
Mm-hmm.
that I want to see. I love seeing women take on, regardless of whether it's their child or not.
Right. And so in our society, we know about the biological, and that's why we said from the womb, basically. But what we want to focus on this evening would be is mothering in our society, our communities, and up to the national level, and how it impacts that. And so when we redefine mothering, what happens when we reframe mothering as a mindset or a practice rather than just a role tied to gender or family?
That's really powerful. That's really powerful, and it's particularly powerful because we know that men have, we all have a masculine energy as well as feminine energy. And every time I get called a biggity woman, and they call me that often the time, especially people who have probably the tough job of managing me.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they're referring to, a strong masculine side. So you can be mothering is not about, I would put it, uh, the female energy, which is nurturing energy,
Right.
can come from anyone, can come from men and women. And we all have both those sides. We all have both those sides. I would say I like that term of reframing mothering and a mindset. And I like the imagery of the womb. I mean, if you think of what's going on in a womb, this is the cradle of life.
Mm-hmm.
It's where it takes uh, a controlled environment that's where all of the body parts are being developed, where all of the
Mm-hmm.
new systems of a new idea, a new being are being birthed, and it's in the dark. So a critical thing around this mothering is, I would say, when you're birthing a new idea or you're birthing a new concept, and you're doing that with a group that you're working,
Mm-hmm.
it's you might want to keep quiet about that to give it the space to grow, to evolve, the freedom without the light and the attack and the attention and the all the stuff that's going to take it away from the seed of what it is. And so I think when we think of this reframing, mothering, and paying attention to the seed, you know, of
Mm-hmm.
uh, of a new idea, of a group, of a person, and remembering that, as they say, we like to pay attention to the tree and the branch, but everything is in the seed.
See, yeah.
Everything is in the seed, and so that gift of someone who prays for you, watches out for you, nudges you gently in a direction that you think might be better for you, puts people in your path that they don't have to do it themselves. Puts people in your path
Mm-hmm.
that would help you grow and thrive. I think that can come from anyone, and to bring that nurturing energy is uh, our nation needs it. Not just our nation, all nations need it. The world needs it. So I like that reframing.
Awesome. Awesome. So healing as leadership. How do we empower leaders to mother the public psyche, especially in times of trauma, corruption, and hopelessness?
Can
You've
we
been
go
a
to the
QC, so
next
you can
question?
handle all these questions.
Can we go to the next one, please? Because that's a tough one. They're all tough ones, but that's
Okay.
I tell you, I would say what I notice in times of trauma, corruption, um, hopelessness, we naturally want to do this. We want to come up with a quick answer.
Mm.
It's a problem. I want a solution now. I don't want to be listening. I don't want to be exploring. I don't want to be workshopping. I want a solution. It's very natural for us to go for a knee-jerk solution, but the nurturing part of it, we talked about it right at the beginning, which is listening with empathy. Sometimes your job in supporting healing and trauma, maybe some of the biggest components of your job involve listening. You're listening with no judgment, listening with empathy. Listening almost is about, not almost, but is about creating the space where what is trying to be born or what is trying to find itself can come through. And so that healing, so consider it's not your job to heal someone else. And we talked about this a bit early with regenerative medicine, regenerative health, is we all have within us the power to regenerate, to restore. We cannot do it on our own. We're innately built to not be able to do this on our own. We're built to need support, whether it's support from the supernal worlds, your soul, your friends, your family, your community, because of course, all of that you will see through, it's expressed through your communities. We're built to need the support of others. And so if you think of your supporting someone in creating the space for them to find their healing journey, you're not healing them. You're not fixing them. The greatest gift to them is creating the space and responding and reflecting based on something that they've said, not even fully understanding what you're even saying. It's like, you can imagine when you're in a conversation with someone, you're talking about one thing, they were listening, and then they almost come up from left field because something you said resonated with something else. And what people don't always realize is that may appear to left field for you, but it may have a unique and important trigger for the other person that makes them think of something else. And so you're navigating the conversation like a river. You are grateful for the honor to support someone in their healing journey. You recognize that they've got the power to heal, and you see them as having the power to for their healing. You're holding the space. And I would say that if we can find and create ways, and there are groups in the Bahamas where people very much work on that. But those are true blessings for mental wellness, rejuvenation, especially in trauma and in difficult times.
Yeah. So, folks, we celebrating or honoring Mental Health Awareness Month, and so these topics, this is anything to do with the mind is me all over, right? I'll be there on the quick and the hurry, and so as we move through this to try and get through all this wealth that is in the head of this young lady and put some of it out, because she's gonna trigger these questions, trigger all kind of things. But defining regenerative health, people keep asking me this question when I put up the post. What exactly is it, and why did you choose to specialize in it?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. So for some people, it started off with some people focus more on regenerative medicine, which has become a kind of subspecialty, subfield. Many people will know of stem cells in the context of that, but it goes beyond any particular therapeutic or any particular style. it captures the idea that the body has the ability to regenerate, and in many ways, stem cells particularly capture the imagination of people as being able to do that. And once we, I always say, you know, when the guy Shinya Yamanaka in 2012 won the Nobel Prize for his work in stem cells, that really gave a huge boost to the possibility that these cells in the body that have the ability to become anything they need to become, which are stem cells, and they start off in the maximum amount when you're babies. They've already begun to fall off when you're in middle age, and they get to their lowest amount as you age. And there is a parallel between aging and the signs and the illnesses and the cellular conditions associated with aging, and what's going on with not just stem cells but other systems in your body, as their immune system particularly. So that's the medical part of it, and it's very much connected to longevity. But people begun to also, in the same paradigm, in the same period, people began to start to see this was an opportunity to connect the dots in health and medicine, that we split up medicine into these different boxes. And this was the opportunity to think regeneratively more broadly. So it isn't just this or that cell or this or that system. It's also behaviorally. It's also it's thinking of the whole self, the whole body, and how can we think and live and see the whole. And for me, that's where regenerative health lives, meaning that we are awesomely created and we have the ability to restore and regenerate, and we're doing that naturally all the time. We get stuck in particular areas when behaviors are not aligned with the way the body is supposed to go. But we are learning more and more the skills, the tools, the power, and the techniques to reactivate those parts of us that can restore and regenerate. And why I ended up specializing in, I think it found me as much as I found it. I begun my medical career from medical school feeling that the medicine we were practicing was primitive, even though I had no reason to know why. I was a medical student, but I had a gut instinct that this can't be it. I became curious about how we created this medicine. And then when I was done my PhD, the idea was, the thinking was, if you could understand how we built the thing, you could reverse engineer how to create what the next paradigm would be. So I was reaching towards this thing that I came to call regenerative health, and that came to be known as longevity before I had the words and the name for it. And the more, as it was going parallel to me, and the more it crystallized view, the more it was like we found each other. and I had the sense that I had, without realizing it, developed all the skills I needed to move in that path, and also my unique niche within it. But I was not, I didn't have, I was moving towards it and conscious of the direction before I had the words, the words that I currently have for it.
Okay, awesome. So regenerative health and the inner mother. In your work on longevity and regenerative health, how important is emotional or spiritual mothering to the self to living well and long?
Yeah, so I would say it's central. I would say for me, everything is consciousness. Consciousness, and to see the body as an instrument of consciousness, to see the first thing you're thinking of with everything you do, as you put food in your mouth, as you walk to the store, and you're thinking consciousness is everything. Where I put my consciousness is what will shape the experience. Even though I don't yet have all of the scientific specifics to define it, I'm getting enough of the pieces of that to say there's enough in the science of consciousness and physics to say that consciousness comes first. The consciousness came first. And so I, quite frankly, cannot imagine how you would move through this world fulfilling, if you believe in soul and purpose, without having a spiritual practice. It's very, it might be possible, and there might be those who are doing it, but this is a very tough world to live in. One of my prayers, I used to pray to fulfill my purpose, and I now pray to be granted the miracle and the merit of fulfilling my soul's purpose for this day. Like I used to see it as a big long thing that I would fulfill if I were lucky, call soul purpose, and I would look for what it might be, and was that it or was that it? And then the more I've moved forward, the more it's become the purpose for this day, for this moment, like right in the instance, and getting that whatever I did yesterday, even though it's important to have behavioral practices, whatever I did yesterday that gave me a sense of light and gave me a sense of the right direction, I'm not going to just be repeating that today. I need to be asking, what do I need to be doing now? So I would say your inner mothering for this would be listening to the ringing of your soul. It is sometimes described, like you're trying to go this way and your soul is ringing like a cowbell, like ding, 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 ding. So, paying attention to that, the cowbell ringing, that's your inner mother.
Okay, cool. I might dropping off. All right. Yeah. So, folks out there, if you have any questions or comments, do drop it in the chat, and we'll endeavor to address them, because time we need like 3 hours with this young lady. But so, community as a womb. Can schools, churches, clinics, communities function like mothers, nurturing stability, hope, and the 10 types of intelligence?
Absolutely, 100%, 1,000%. Absolutely. And I know many churches, clinics, and communities are trying to do that, trying to find ways of doing it, because you can't just say it takes a village to raise a child. This is the way I was raised. This is the way we did it. It doesn't work anymore. Like every day is different. Every year is different. Whatever worked, 10 years ago when we were kids is not that same world. And so all of these community groups, civic organizations, I know so many of them, people it takes so long. Let me put it takes so long if you're trying to create a program to get the fripping thing off the ground. It takes so long to do it, to get the pieces together, to get the funding and whatever. It's your instinct or your nature to want to keep it as it is. Like it took so long to pull it together. It wasn't nothing, you didn't just fall in your lap. It's the instinct to, now that we've got it off the ground, that took like 4 or 5 years, let's just keep doing it like that. And that's exactly the thing to resist, because the real gift, the real, as you talked about, mothering is allowing the uncomfortableness that is about constant change to happen. And so I'm much respect and hats off to those communities and clinics that are trying to do that, that are looking to support. And I would say, don't, even when especially when the program starts to work, that's when you want to change.
Cool. Awesome. So, inherited emotional DNA. How do generational wounds and unmothered trauma show up in mental and national health? Can regenerative health practices disrupt that
Disrupt that
cycle?
cycle. Yeah, they show up everywhere. They mostly, the challenge with it is you don't know that they're showing up. You don't know that you're seeing them. You don't know that they're running you. You think that that's normal, or you think that's the way it should be, or you think that you're right, or you think you have the right to be reactive in a particular way because that happened to you, and so you have the right to feel upset or whatever. And some of there are practices to disrupt the cycle, and people create new ones all the time. But honestly, Happy, it comes down to love. I mean, and I say that not wanting to be heard in a cliched way, because we write songs about love, we write poems about love, we talk about love, we love thy neighbor as thyself, blah 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 blah. Really hard to do. Okay? Really not easy to do. But there is that wonderful expression of the Kabbalists that says the reason you focus on love is we all want to do what we're doing, and we want the sense that the light is there, the creator is there. Am I doing it in a way that is bringing light into the world, or is it my ego? If you're evolving and trying to make a contribution, you're always asking yourself the question. And in fact, it turns out, and I love when every time the rabbi mentor of mine says this, I'm blown away by it. It's like, there's one sure way of knowing it, which is love there? Because wherever love is where the creator is. And and so one of the ways, sometimes if you're talking to a group of people, or you're in a space and you're wanting to inspire as a leader, and you're wanting to connect, you really want that from the heart. Your ego's there. We all have egos. And one of the practices it's slightly off the point for this question, but I feel it's related. One of the practices is when you're in that space with those people, take the time to connect with all of them with love. Like, can you generate love for every single person in that room? Like, can you look at them and feel that? And some would say, if you can't do that, you should just leave. So if you ever got invited to speak at an event, and the leader walked in and looked around, you saw him looking around, and then you suddenly turned around and left, you'd say, oh,
Yeah.
couldn't get the love in.
Yeah, so that's a very important point, because the next question here is the mental health is equal to capital, human capital. And if mentality, resilient population is our most valuable assets, then isn't investing in mental wellness a form of economic strategy?
That is such a powerful question, and it's such a powerful point. And I don't think I have never gone anywhere and heard an economist talking. See, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I've never heard the numbers for mental wellness as an economic strategy. And why not? Like, why aren't we calculating in that way? Why aren't we investing in that way? Well, I do know why, because some of the things that you measure in budgets are easier to measure. And so we tend to measure the things that we can measure. We track the things that we can't track, the things that are easier. But maybe in the context of advanced technologies, your AI, your digital tech, and the ways that we can measure, we have measures for some of the things, some of the measures of heart-mind coherence. We know that when the heart and the mind are coherent, you can actually measure that, and that's a greater sense of alignment. That's a measure of wellness. So we have technologies now that can help us see how well we are doing with mental wellness and track that. Maybe I would say, as a challenge for us, is it not time that we change our metrics for economic strategy and use the measures that we can have for mental wellness? This is such a powerful, it's really paradigm shifting question, I think.
Yeah, we try to do that here on Something to Think About, to make us think about something that's normal or what is not being conversed about. And so mothering as development, right? Because sometimes we don't think of mothering as development, but
Yeah.
what might national development look like if we prioritize nurturing over punishment, care over control, and resilience over survival?
Wow, that's like you got to go back again to the National Development Plan. You got to rewrite the whole thing now.
Well,
Go back to the
they
plan.
should have put me on there in the first place. Then we could
Go back to the plan and scrap the thing. Rewrite the whole thing. But on a serious note, without a doubt, man, no doubt, prioritizing nurturing over punishment, and reframing that. Sometimes what people are not seeing when they're lashing out, let's say, and they're what they're not seeing is how much more they might be hurting themselves than the person that they're lashing out on. So some of this, and this is the regenerative resilience, the science of it, recognizing what is going on in your body when you're, and from a chronic stress point of view, when you're in a cycle of rage and anger and lashing out, and small steps, small skills, not always easy to practice, especially when you're really mad, to pause. Pause for a moment. That's like when the people talk about the power of prayer and meditation. And if you have ever been terrified, in that moment when you cannot meditate, like you
Right.
can't. All your brain is like, fix it. You can't. So you have to calm down enough to do that. So we get that sometimes the joke of it is, as you're thinking in your wisest, cleverest way about a lesson around punishment and lashing out, and in that moment, and how the importance of love and kindness for yourself, and then you step in a puddle and you're cursing yourself. You're cursing your trousers. You were just meditating on it. You were already thinking about that. Imagine if you didn't have that awareness. So I would say we do need to spend more time, and we should teach them from a very young age how to develop the skills around pausing and that kind of self-care, where you're just not being unkind to yourself and being, calling yourself stupid and lashing out at yourself, and recognizing that when you do that to others, you're also doing that. So I think the duality that you're the prioritizing in that sentence, it's comes back to an earlier point of reframing, like the reframing of what it means to be, what self-care truly at all the levels could mean, and how that begins with you.
Yeah, awesome. And these things are very, very perpetual, right? In the way that we tend to look at things for a long period of times instead of looking at it in slices in the moment that we're in. So as a nation, right, because we like to go back to the Pinland era and all that kind of stuff when we're doing things. But I mean, there's value in doing that for when you're looking at it from a certain point. But moving forward, you got to look at it from a different point also. Yeah. So regenerating a nation, is national regeneration possible without collective healing? And how might the regenerative framework help lead that transformation?
Why don't you try and ask me an easy question? Why don't you ask me an easy question
All
there?
it is are easy questions for you. I'm coming up to the easy ones, but you just we got to get the foundation ones in. You see,
Absolutely. You know,
you
ask me a hard one. No,
yeah, I want you.
honestly,
You can run out my you can my time will run out, and then you can be on the plane going back in 5-10 minutes. I need to get in the hard ones first.
I would say, what's interesting about that question. All your questions are phenomenal, by the way. Very
Thank you.
thought provoking.
Mhm.
But what's phenomenal about this question is, as I look at it, I think maybe the two of those happen together. Like rather than national regeneration uh, being predicated on collective healing, it might be that sometimes when you have it's like a
They feed each other.
big, like a big hairy problem, and you stand at it, you're looking at it, you don't know where to dig in, and in fact you dig in there, that starts to affect the other things, and so you dig in there. It might be one of those things where, as we focus on collective, as we focus on healing individually, then community, or individually in parallel with community and collective, we then keep our eyes out for the intention, come back to consciousness, the intention of national regeneration. The whole thing about regeneration too, as a process, is you don't know how it's going to go. Like it's not like you can say, oh, regeneration means I go back to some world of perfection that I never saw. That is a story I like to tell myself back in the good old days. That's really not what that is. So it's about the openness for a country, a space, a group to evolve with changing times, not knowing what that is, maybe developing a sense of intuition, whether you're going in the right directions, coming back to the National Development Plan, markers or indicators that would suggest that directionally you're going in the right way. And those countries that are starting to focus on happiness indices, fulfillment indices, how many people are living in cities as opposed to countries, those countries and groups that are starting to do that, I think have got messages for us on how to think differently about the whole. And
But we could just look at our family islands in Nassau, on New Providence, and then Abaco and Grand Bahama, and how do we think so differently on those different islands, and why their things might be more successful in some areas than
ours. And the minute and you feel it the minute you get off the plane. There's the honest, you jump off the plane, you immediately feel like you're in a different world.
Yeah, I have to figure out why when I put a new question up, they dropping me off the screen. But anyway, that's the
2030 Bahamas. That's around the corner, man. That's around the corner.
That's why we have it here, because the $100 billion economy we think should be around the corner. So from a mother nation, if you could paint a picture of mentally well, regenerative Bahamas 5 years from now, what would it feel like to live here or there?
Okay.
Not like you wouldn't duck that one.
No, I want to dive into that one. I love that one. I love all your questions, but I started to feel it. What would it feel? And it's exactly what you would want to know, what it would feel like. So,
because Bahamians always say the Bahamas ain't real, right? And they like to say that.
It ain't real. It ain't. And meaning what exactly?
I mean, they say so many things just don't seem to be what would be logical and sensible and normal and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But they don't be nowhere else in the world to know what other people doing.
They're the difference. So I have a very good friend here who says, now, Doc, you better watch yourself, because you're starting to make sense, so it can't happen here. The thing used to always be that if you start making too much sense when you're trying to explain something, you can just kiss that goodbye. You know, but the joke, very tongue in cheek, but the joke around that would be, the thing, it's paradoxical. When I'm away from the Bahamas and people learn that I'm from the Bahamas because I don't live here full time, and people say, "Where are you from?" I said, "Originally, I'm from the Bahamas." And they've been here, they know the country. They always speak about the friendly people. It's phenomenal. Like, it's like, they always speak about the warm embrace of the country. And of course, when you're here, you're thinking, why don't I feel that warm embrace? Like, I just got raked over the coal by that woman in the Stop and Shop or whatever. Like, we don't feel it. But so I would say, 2030 would really build on some of our strengths. There is something, I think, uniquely in the spirit of Bahamian people that is about warmth and friendliness. I think we don't even think it means very much, okay? But you will notice it in different countries. So I would say, what would it feel like? What I would add to the feel of it is I get a little saddened by our, attempt or our satisfaction with being small. I think people play too small. If you have a bold idea that's completely out of the box and you start speaking it, you can count on those people giving you the stink eye. Okay. And so I would want to see more hearts open to, exponential potential here. I would like to see that be there be I'd like for people to feel like they could breathe that air of infinite possibility, and it could not just be a vague idea, but it could be actually realized, and it could be they could really see the fruit of it. It wouldn't just be a crazy idea. And that really is I think that's a balance between creating new opportunities and pushing the boat out for more opportunities, creating the structures where new things can strive, but not overly bureaucratizing them so that you strangle innovation. And I think it's a balance between that and a shift in a greater sense of hopefulness in people of all generations, but particularly younger people, that this is a world where they can fulfill their dreams, where it really is possible, as opposed to that sense you sometimes get, which is, I've got as far as I can go here. If I wanted to do anything else, you hear people say this all the time,
go someplace.
The mindset is too constraining for me. I would want to see that had shifted.
Yeah, but when I came home from school, if I had taken that attitude, then where would we be, right? We probably wouldn't even be having this conversation in this forum, and so forth. And excuse me, we stretched the limits so much till when we used to go to classes and forums and stuff, people used to say, "Y'all them little boys from the Bahamas, how y'all get to do all them things y'all just do with a little bit of money and a little bit of people and a little bit of stuff? We be fighting with all this money and can't get these things done and can't design them, can't this, that."
Yeah.
But we looked at it as from our own as, it's nothing. So y'all ain't doing
That's just what we do. That's just what we do.
But it's crazy. But anyway, yeah. So let me really, stretch your mind now before we let you go jump on the plane, because I know you got to go somewhere again. Because you're always going.
2050.
So in 2050, where do we go from here? Now, what will 2050 look like in your mind if we were to do what you think we should be doing?
Wow. if we did what I think we should be doing,
Yeah, from this whole conversation that we had,
we
in terms
would
of
be.
nurturing the mind and all of that stuff, would be.
I would love to see us be, and I think it is possible. I'm not sure we will make it, but I definitely think it's not pie in the sky. We would be one of the leaders in longevity and regenerative health, literally.
Okay.
And we would be a beacon of how unexpected that is, like how unexpected things can come from small places where you least expect that. I think we really have the pieces together: location, geography, mind, power, legal structures, all kinds of pieces. We have a lot of assets that could really make us the envy of a country that, people tell the story of Singapore. We could be an example of a country not to do what people do in the Bahamas all the time. They say, well, that's Singapore. We could be the next Singapore. No,
I don't want to be the next thing.
we don't want to be the next Singapore. We want to be ourselves.
Yeah.
So if we could be an example of a country that just turned that around and turned what was a burgeoning industry into beyond an industry, a reflection of who we were as a people.
Awesome. Now I can't let my comet come on the show and don't big you up, right? So when we look at this now, we say here, this thing I call Creative Health, the 10 top tips of longevity and regenerative health.
Yes.
Tell us, how does your book help us connect all these things that we discussed?
So my book touches on all the things we talked about today, not in the same way, but they touch all the things we talked about today. And it gives people ways to, talks about how to integrate those things in your life. It is a blend of science, of poetry, of stories, of images. It's a very personalized view and journey, so I'm sharing from all of those things in it. I will have a book reading, a book launch, and a short lecture and Q&A at the NAGB on Sunday the 18th. So if you're there between 2 and 5, you can buy a book, and if you buy it online, you can pick it up there and have it signed. And we'll talk from about 3 to 3:45, 4, and then Q&A and open-ended conversation until then. So I'm looking forward to that. That's the 18th. If you can't make the 18th, Sunday at the NAGB, it's not your thing. There's a wine tasting at the Crew Bristol Cellars on Gladstone Road on the 29th between 7 and 10. And we'll have some sip and wine and chatting and stuff about the book and the signing. So
oh boy, the wines, them.
The wine.
The wines from them high society cities. Well, through the back corner of Harlem.
But the reality is, it's because it's wine tasting, you'll be able to sip them. You won't have to buy them.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so we talked about plenty of things now.
We did.
Yeah. Oh boy, what am I doing?
So you're doing some things. I'm trying to find my plug. So hold a thought. I don't want to die at this point with my computer. So we'll see if I can find my plugs. Hold on.
But basically,
keep talking.
I'm asked you plenty of questions, and so is there anything that we didn't cover that you would wish
I don't think it's
touch
possible.
on?
So we covered like we created the world and came back again.
Yeah, but there might be something that you want that's on your heart that you wanted to say to the audience. That
I love that you stretched me and you took me in directions I'd never even thought of or would have pulled together. That's always fun. Mm-hmm. And I would say, come join me at the NAGB and let's chat. We have a growing community that we launched the New York aspects of the Healing 360. Mm-hmm. And we have the summit that happens in the Bahamas every year. We just finished it for 2025. That was the 27th to 29th. So join the community and be part of what we're creating globally. So come and join us. We'd love to see you.
Yeah, well, we have nothing but respect for what you're doing. We want your programs to work, just as we strive to create this $100 billion economy.
Yes.
In Bahamas. We built on sunshine, sea, digital, and
soul.
People.
And soul.
So yeah. But see, our sunshine and sea is not the traditional what tourism is all about. We're talking about the sun is for the renewables, and the sea is all of the marine stuff, and the sand is bush medicines and all that kind of stuff. We feel that Bahamians could tap into all of those because, there's a story that the drink Gatorade really was invented by a Bahamian.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yes, yeah, I heard that.
There's some questions as to what happened in that, how...
What happened to that IP?
Big business goes along and does what it does, but sometimes. So I don't know who has that story in detail, but if they want to come on and talk about it, yeah, sure. But, those are some of the things. Bahamians could do anything, right? And I look at my cancer walk and some of the things that they talk about, and some of the bush medicines is what they use in order to get some of the major medicines that they're selling, and that they could reproduce and stuff. But really and truly, we have it. We just need to be creative in our doing.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you. And my computer is going to die any minute now. So you see me holding the pieces together.
But we want to thank you kindly for joining us, and we'll do our endeavor best to be out there on that day.
Sunday.
When is it? Vanessa said the 18th.
The 18th is Sunday, 2 to 5, NAGB. And the 29th is the wine tasting at Bristol Cellars, 7 to 10.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Right,
awesome.
Man. Take care.
All right. Take care. Do well.
Love you. Bye-bye.
All right. So, folks, you've been listening and watching Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles, and we've had Dr. Desirée Cox, as we used to call her in high school, the diva, the one, the bright one, the smart one, the one who's do all these different things, well-rounded lady, now dealing with regenerative health and all that kind of stuff. And, that is huge because my studies since having my episode with cancer in 2009 and dealing with all these different things, you find that really is a lot of what is really needed in order to drive people back to healthy lives, right? To be educated on how the body works, etc., and tie in all these things together. And I believe that if we have all of these tied together and we get a momentum, a rush like what we did for Majority Rule, the Bahamas could become very productive very quickly again, because we have a lot of people walking around who are struggling mentally in something. They mightn't be considered clinically a challenge or whatever, but there's different little things that is getting in the way of them being as productive as they can. And so that means our nation isn't as productive as it can be. But if we could tweak these things, then the nation could tweak in its production, and then that story of people saying it would be like Singapore wouldn't be really an issue, because that's just a discipline issue, and people not feeling that when they put their effort out, that they're going to get rewarded for what they put out there in the space. So kindly, thank you for joining us. We'll be back here next week We talk a little bit about the new built environment with a very, very, very knowledgeable guest. We'll post some stuff up shortly. He's ambassador. He's doing some great things out there in the space where he's at for the Bahamas. These are some of the things that we don't talk about. The media doesn't talk about these things, but these ambassadors are doing. They only talk about travel, who traveling here and who traveling there, but it's the production that comes out of the travel that we really should be talking about. So until next week, same bad channel, same bad time. You enjoy. Peace out.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative 242